Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. We will be recording podcasts every single day this week. My name's John Dykes, and I'm going to ask our special guest, Kevin Graham, what's the story?
Unfortunately, the story is the coronavirus and what it's doing not just to Scottish football but to world football at this precise moment in time, especially European football, and what's going to happen with the leagues. It's been bizarre since Friday when all leagues were suspended in Britain, and it was always on the cards. Nobody can actually say they didn't see it coming after the Italian leagues, German leagues, after there was European games postponed. Come on, did we see any leadership for the SFA and the SPFL in the first place when this is their games are going ahead at the weekend and in front of and with crowds there? Wrong decision. Everybody knew as soon as the English Premier League says that they were suspending games that we would follow suit, because we do see ourselves as a slightly smaller version as the beam-off across the border. It throws up so many questions that nobody's got any answers to, and the fans are not going to have any answers to them. The ones that are going to give us the answer are the ones are going to be lawyers. They're going to be the ones that stand to make the most financially for it. And this is what's going to be protected. Clubs need to be protected, but there's going to be sponsors that need protected. There's going to be TV companies that need protected. So what we think is the right decision might not be the right decision financially for clubs, and that's a big problem. A massive problem. There's some shouting for the league to be null and void.
One club?
Probably two. I would maybe say two. Can it be null and void and they can still divvy up prize money? Can the sponsors say, we want our money back if that's null and void? The telly deal's done if they make it null and void, because the Sky contract, as we were told in 2012, must have 4 Celtic Rangers games. That can't happen if the league is ended at this precise moment in time. So Sky have got a vested interest in this. The bookmakers have got a vested interest in this, but they've been taking bets on a competition that no longer exists. A lot of bookmakers actually do sponsor clubs, the Scottish game as well. You've got clubs as well who maybe want it null and void, so there's insurance payments to keep them going. I think for me, what you've got to actually look at is what the bigger European leagues are saying. And it's interesting that the Italian and the Spanish have both come out and says their league will finish.
Right.
So there's a meeting, we're recording this on the Monday, there's a meeting UEFA June within the next 24 hours. So it'll be interesting to see what guidance UEFA give. For me, it's all down to Euro 2020. That looks like it will be suspended, possibly played in December. If that is played in December, I can see leagues finishing in the autumn. The richer leagues can hang on. That's going to be a big problem as well. They'll hang on and finish their games in September. Next season can be sorted. Next season gets started at this point next year, and leagues can play through the summer. It's finishing this season, which is the problem.
Here's the thing for you, Kevin. There's been some talk during the week of tainted titles if Celtic were to be given the title. Sporting integrity has been brought out as well and used fairly commonly. Neil Lennon came out and said if the league was to stop now, Celtic should be crowned champions. Do you agree with him?
Of course, I'm going to agree with him. Whether it feels like we have won the league title is something I probably need to think about. Have we really had that emotional release that we would have got playing and winning the game? It gave us 9 in a row. That might take a little while to get over if they do award us the title. The serious problem is we're too far down the line for it to be null and voided. But I understand where clubs are coming from, especially the ones at the bottom of the league, especially the ones that are fighting for European places, especially the ones in the lower leagues that are fighting for playoff places. I do understand where they're coming from, but there is a way out of this. You wait and you finish the season, whenever that may be. And you can always change the future. So next season, whenever that could be that we need to take a year out, or it could be that we end up going to summer football. This could change football's landscape when we actually play games, when competitions take place, when international competitions take place. It could be that Europe needs to move to a summer calendar for the foreseeable future. From a football fan point of view, you want that emotion. You want to be there or watching it when that final whistle goes and you're declared champions. You didn't want to be sitting in your work 1 metre for somebody and you get told, oh, by the way, you've been awarded the league title.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure the players didn't want it that way, but then the players have played 30 games, were 13 points clear. It would take a Devon Lock proportion collapse for us not to win the league. But I didn't want to back up any of the arguments that it's getting fired out our way. But we're not mathematically there yet. Either Liverpool, even though they're how many points they are in front. But the chances of both teams being caught are really, really remote. And that's got to be taken into account. I've heard the Duckworth-Lewis method in cricket seems to work quite well, So
I think that's the first ever cricket reference on a Celtic State of Mind. Kevin, can you explain what that is to us, please?
No, I can't. It's something about averages. They take averages and the average runs per over.
Right.
And if it rain stops play, whatever that team's average was in the overs until rain stopped play, they multiply that average with the overs that they've lost. Somebody will probably pick me up on that, but I'm sure that's what it is. So what they would actually do is, before...
It's better than a horse racing analogy, Kevin, so that's fine. It makes sense to me.
But before, what they would do is, they would say Celtic's points per game average now is 2.66. I don't know what it is. And they would give us 2.66 points for the remaining 8 games or whatever it is we've got left. They would do the same with everybody. So Hearts' points per game was probably 0.2. So they would get 0.2 points for now and how many games that they've got left. That's the way it would work out.
And Celtic would be crowned champions. Now, in the meantime, with the absence of football, nothing can substitute that, but we will be increasing our content. We've got a new studio in Glasgow. We're recording podcasts on a daily basis, Kevin.
Bizarrely,
Yes. More video content. Last week we were at the Stevie Chalmers auction. We'll come back to that in a few moments. From the modern topical subject of Scottish football, delving now into the past and Cathkin Park, the former home of Third Lanark, now the home of the Jimmy Johnstone Academy and Charitable Trust. Your thoughts of the park and the pavilion?
It's just unreal to actually stand on a terracing which has been there since 1884. There's a ghostly feel to it. There's a passionate feel to it. There's history in every single pore, every single step that you do take. Then you go and see the pavilion that the Jimmy Johnstone Academy keep, and it's just drowning in artefacts that are beautiful to Jimmy, to Celtic, but also to Scottish football. Obviously Cathkin was the second Hampden, so there's been cup finals played there, there's been League Cup finals played there, there's been international tournaments played there. It's got a massive part to play in Scottish football. And the guys for the Jimmy Johnstone Academy keep it absolutely perfect. And they make sure that it's been created with passion. There's some pictures, when you look around it, just take you right back. It's something that you can tell that the people who are involved in it, who have created it, love Jimmy and love the place, love Cathkin Park itself. So I would recommend anybody to take a walk, go around Cathkin Park. And I mean, you're talking about you'll be walking on the park where Willie Maley signed James McGrory. If that doesn't make you want to go and have a walk onto that centre circle, then I don't know what else. And obviously James McGrory got Jimmy Johnstone to sign for Celtic. Jimmy Johnston's first reserve game was at Cathkin Park. There's just so much history for the place to go to be left for so long as it was, even by the SFA. I mean, Hampden's just a stone throw away from it. And for it to take a group of volunteers to come in, do the place up, give it what it needs, what it deserved, and put through, I think it's over 60,000 children through football with some great successes. We've had Jim on the podcast before, and he spoke about Darnell Fisher and just what it does to the community in Glasgow. It's a fantastic place, absolutely fantastic place, and more people need to get involved in it.
And the spirit of Jinky is alive and well down at Cathkin. When you go round the shrine to Jimmy Johnstone, it just reminds you just how special that man was to Celtic and Scottish football as a whole. Definitely,
and the fact that he only won 23 caps is terrible, that he only won 23 caps. When you see that there's a wall in the pavilion which has got letters from all over the world from teams all over the world, from Real Madrid, Barcelona, from Tony Blair, from Newcastle, from Sven-Goran Eriksson,
Sepp Blatter
as well, from when Jimmy died, all paying their respects to Jimmy Johnstone, one of the greatest Scottish football players ever, who only got 23 caps.
It's quite incredible. And one of the names you mentioned earlier, Jimmy McGrory, won less than 10 caps for his country. Now, of course, as everyone knows, Jimmy Johnstone was named Celtic's greatest ever player. And that takes me on to the next section of our podcast, Your Greatest 11. Something that we have run polls on a Celtic State of Mind in relation to cult heroes, 1950s heroes. What is your greatest 11? Let's talk about the Celtic players that you have known and loved.
And that's where it's coming from. There'll be a lot of people, when I say this team, will go, that player was better than that player. But that necessarily doesn't go into a greatest 11. The greatest 11 is players who have made a big impression on you when you've been growing up watching football. For me, they didn't need to necessarily be great, but there's guys that you've enjoyed watching and you've maybe...
You feel an affinity with certain players.
Yes. You know that you're going to get a shift out of it. You know that they're going to give you 100%.
Brendan Rodgers liked Anton Rogan and named his son after him. Allegedly. Right, so that's fine. So it's not always your flair players.
No, obviously there's some players in here who would get into your greatest 11. They would get into any Celtic greatest 11. But there's maybe a couple of names folk will go, why? But I'll explain that.
Personal affinity to that player.
Definitely, definitely. So in goals is Arthur Boric. Even though Pat Bonner was my goalkeeper growing up, the thing with Bonner, which is maybe my memory playing tricks on me, is I always remember Pat Bonner as Pat Bonner of the Republic of Ireland 1990. I don't know why I never really remember him playing for Celtic, which is quite weird, having gone to games all during the 80s. And when I look back at footage and I see saves that he's made, I'm like, but I tell you, 90 was a big, massive changing point in my life watching as a football fan. So
would you say that was your World Cup?
Yes, definitely.
86 would have maybe been too early for you?
Times of the games as well. Still at primary school at that time. The times of the games didn't suit. I think I only watched one Scotland game, and that would have been the Uruguay game because it was on a Friday night at quite a decent time. Anyway, Arthur Boric. We recently spoke to Gordon Strachan.
Yeah.
And Gordon Strachan says Arthur Boric should have been the best goalkeeper in the world.
In the world, he said that. Yep.
And for me, that's what makes him.
But he also said the story about him in the changing room.
Smoking, aye.
He would disappear at half time. Where's Arthur? He's in the cubicle having a fag.
He won games single-handedly. Man United, after Nakamura's fantastic free kick, that penalty save. You knew he was going to save it. You knew the place was going mental. And you knew that's what he lived on. Also the fact that he used to come back overweight. You could tell that he had a great summer. The fact that he was a big, mad, mental Legia Warsaw ultra.
Yeah.
The fact that he got football fans. He knew what we were going through. The fact that he had so many antics at Ibrox.
He was unhinged, eh?
He didn't like them. He was a perfect, could you say, he was a perfect goalkeeper who everybody's got this opinion of goalkeepers being daft. And he just played up to that sort of caricature of a goalkeeper. But he was a fabulous goalkeeper.
Phenomenal goalie and still playing.
He was a phenomenal goalkeeper, and one though Gordon sort of says that as a wee flippant comment, but there's truth in that. Arthur Boric should have been the best goalkeeper in the world, but the reason that he wasn't was down to Arthur Boric.
The antics. And now, it may or may not be all that important. Are you going for a formation with this team? Is it a 4-4-2?
No.
Just 11 guys that...
Huz ended up as a 4-4-2,
right.
But I didn't, when I started writing out the names.
So who's got the number 2 shots?
Jackie Mack. Again, I can picture him running up and doing that right wing. With a top, it always looked 3 sizes too big for him.
Big baggy jersey. Had a good link with Sid in front of him.
Also in the Martin O'Neill time, played back free at times as well. Captain. Unfairly treated by the club probably when he left. I mean, was it 11 years he would have been there? Always gave you 100%. Celtic man through and through. A genuine guy. And an era when football players started getting further and further away from being genuine people.
Yeah.
Guys that you would guys that you would meet in the street. They've guys like we've been lucky enough to meet Sid and that, and they are still guys who you will meet in the street. They just missed out on the massive paydays, even though they were in the early days of the Bosman. But wee Jackie was fantastic.
Recently as well, Kevin, Danny McGrain said that he was asked the question, who was the best right back since Danny McGrain, and he named Jackie McNamara as his favourite. He came to my attention during my school years. I studied media studies, and we got a pass to East End Park to film the games, and the deal was that we gave the club the film so that they could study performances, but we were able to use the experience from a media perspective. And the one guy that stood out week after week was a young skinny laddie at the right back. It was Jackie. So when Celtic finally signed him, it was no surprise to me because I'd been watching him, quite closely and editing the footage and all that kind of stuff. So fantastic signing for what, 650 grand back then?
Definitely. And he also was, we speak about Jinky, how Jinky was born to play for Celtic, was in the lineage of what we want to see Celtic players be. Jackie was the same. That's how we want Celtic fullbacks to play. And it's the first thing that folk go, your fullback can't defend. We're going, well, we didn't really want our fullback to defend. We want him to be another forward. And Jackie was great. Yeah. Jackie was great at doing that. Later on in his career, he sort of went into a back three. He also screened in front of the midfield a couple of times as well. He was just an all-round, competent, great football player, and one that you would actually want in your team.
Mm-hmm. And we wish Jackie all the best in his recovery after his recent illness. Jackie's been on the podcast. We've met him a number of times, and as you say, he's a great ambassador of the club, always speaks highly of Celtic, so all the best to Jackie Mack. Who would be left back?
Left back, Darius Dovcek. Again, this comes from the change in times, early 90s, and all of a sudden we're signing this Polish guy who you watched playing against England about a couple of weeks before that, and he stood out like a sore thumb. One of the most natural left backs I've ever seen. What a sweet left foot. One of those technical football players that you only saw in European teams, came and played for us. Great player, came to the club at the wrong time, but he still stood out for me growing up during that time, going into the early 90s. Used to love seeing his name on the team sheet because you knew you would get a performance from him. You knew he was just technically great.
And tomorrow will be the anniversary of that free kick, the St Patrick's Day massacre.
It will do, yes. Aye. It's still the look of surprise on his face when he scores that, right enough. That was a great freak, that.
I think it took a deflection. Was it Hurlock? It took a deflection off of Hurlock.
Even better.
Better. The thing with Dovcek that I always remember, Kevin.
Just a pity it didn't hit Hurlock in the face.
Well, I know. I remember reading one of Billy McNeil's books, and he said that Dovcek was one of his biggest disappointments because, maybe going back to the Boric reference that you made earlier, he could have achieved so much more.
Aye, maybe you're talking about these guys are coming from Poland at that time, coming to a different culture. It's all different. It's not like nowadays where players move from different countries willy-nilly and they can be away from their home country at 14, 15, 16. It's a completely different time. I mean, Jakanowski, probably the biggest waste of space. When you're talking about people wasting talent, he done it as well, but he's revered down in Bristol where he went. But when you look what he should have done with us, you're going, you should have done a lot more. You should be a Celtic legend.
Flashes of brilliance.
Oh, definitely. Flatter to deceive at times as well. And I remember I'm refusing to take a penalty kick in the 1990 Scottish Cup final as well, which is...
And then he missed a sit in the League Cup final.
That's right, aye.
It's Rangers are 1-1. So who would make up your two central defenders then?
First one's Paul Elliott.
Great choice.
That's fantastic. You sign a guy for Italian football. Again, Italian 90 changed my life, tournament-wise, and you sign a guy who you were watching on Football Italia. Fantastic. Got a hell of a time when he actually first came here with bookings. 16 bookings.
First season.
Second season, he was immense for us. Carried that team. You mentioned that League Cup final. I think Elliott scored in that League Cup final as well. Fantastic centre-half. Rolls Royce. Here we go again, Rolls Royce centre-half. But he was probably as good as a centre-half as what Van Dijk was for us.
He was a captain as well. I know he didn't captain Celtic, but he was a natural leader. Definitely.
Again, we didn't have many highlights during that time in the early 90s, but going to see Paul Elliott every week. It's been a pleasure to actually say I watched Paul Elliott playing for Celtic. Again, he's one of the players that you followed when he left. You had no malice at all that he left, because you understood why he left the football club. He wanted to go back to London. The club was in a mess, and you were gutted for him when he got injured and his career was cut short. Great memories watching him. Maybe not watching the whole team at that time, but we had some quality players in the early 90s, and it's just a case of right players, wrong time.
You think of two of the other centre-halves who we were very close to signing at that time, Steve Bruce, Paul McGrath. Imagine marrying them up with Paul Elliott. It would have been a phenomenal partnership. Who would you play alongside Elliott?
Roy Aitken, centenary captain, youngest ever Celtic player. A guy who, 89 Cup final, decided to boot a free kick into the Hampden stand and run back. A guy who was maybe not the greatest player that you would ever see, but he would drag teams by the scruff of the neck into games. He could score goals. Some of the goals, when you go back and watch on YouTube, some of the goals that he scored were immense. The beating heart, him and McStay were the beating heart of that centenary team. Just phenomenal. And we've had a few captains. Brunn's up there now as that type of player. A player that when he's missing, you notice that he's missing. But Aitken, again, it's probably more the centenary team that gives Big Roy his place in that team.
Losing him, Tommy Burns, Billy Stark, McAvenny,
loads of experience,
Mark McGee.
Loads of experience, loads of heart, loads of guys who have been about the block. No surprise that we started going into a tailspin at that point. You can't lose that experience for a club.
And not going to decline, absolutely. So there we go. That's a fairly solid but quite cult goalkeeper and back four. Moving into the midfield, you got somebody on the right wing?
Maybe not on the right wing. I'll just go through my midfielders. The first one that I've wrote down, Stan Petroff. Again, Petroff was a slow starter, right back against Motherwell, struggling to adapt to Scottish football. Then transformed under Martin O'Neill to a fabulous box-to-box midfielder. His timing, appearing in the box for crosses, getting on the end of things, was brilliant. You had Lennon and Lambert who sat behind him and allowed him to actually do his stuff. And he probably wasn't the most skillful player, but his energy and his football intelligence really drove things on in that Martin O'Neill team. And there's a lot of heroes in that Martin O'Neill team, but Petroff was utterly fantastic.
And he was always soaking wet when he came off the pitch. He'd worked so hard, sweating buckets every single game.
He was brilliant. You look at that midfield, and you've got Alan Thompson, Lambert, Lennon, and Petroff. I mean, Lambert and Lennon are not going to give you goals. So if you were having a tough time, you could always rely on Petroff to make that blindsided run, get on the end of a Thompson cross or a set play, or he liked a ping for the edge of the box. Again, he's probably one of the unsung heroes of O'Neill's treble team, but for me, he would get into, well, he has got into my greatest.
Your greatest ever 11. And who would you marry him up with?
McStay, again. About Paul, I didn't appreciate him until he wasn't there. And my view on McStay was probably clouded at the early 90s time, where he got a blame for an awful lot of stuff that wasn't his fault. I've said before in the podcast, the fact that we saw John Collins and Paul McStay in the same midfield is phenomenal for so long for a team. It's an utter turmoil at the time. You go back to that centenary season, it was fabulous. He was born for that season, and he took a lot of flack, and players wouldn't have stayed nowadays in a club that was in so much turmoil just because they had the club at heart, they had his family at heart. Players would have left. He was a phenomenal player, probably the last great midfield player that Scotland's produced. Technically, it could have played anywhere in the world. You speak to guys who are professional football players, and they say we would have loved to have played with him. Could have played at any single level. Rio
Ferdinand, fairly recently. But we also spoke to Willie McStay, who told us some of the clubs who were in for Paul McStay when he was in his prime. Top clubs in England and Italy mainly. But as you say, he continued. I remember him throwing his jersey into the crowd. We all thought it was his last game against Hibs. Threw the jersey into the jungle, but then he signed a new contract and stayed with us right to the very end. And fairly recently I put up on Twitter a letter that I got from his wife. Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
So it just shows you that he actually responded to fan mail as well. I was about 24 at the time that I wrote that letter. And he did respond to it with signed photographs, which was nice. So Paul McStay, I'd love to read his book. If it ever is released, I'd love to read Paul McStay's book.
He's probably got so much stories. I mean, he came from
A dynasty.
early 80s as well. A great side. We had a great side that got put out by Rapid Vienna. Davy Hayes' side was a great side. He was at Love Street at the centenary season. Then he saw it all go wrong until 1995 Cup final. Then he retired just before we won our first title in 9 years. So definitely it's a book that needs to be written and published.
It's interesting when you look at that season, Wim Janssen's season when we stopped to 10, and two players who were still under contract in the summer going into that were Paul McStay and Peter Grant. Grant actually played a couple of games that season at the beginning of the season.
So he did,
Aye. And Paul McStay retired through injury. But they just missed out on that momentous title win, which is a shame for them. But again, you can't get too sentimental with these things. Wim Janssen won it on his own merits, you know. So what's a midfield? McStay and Petrov. Who else have you got in there?
Tommy Burns. Again, this is maybe a bit cult. Burns probably means more to Celtic Football Club than a lot of the players that will ever walk through the doors of Celtic Football Club. And he was a fantastic player. Let's not get that wrong. He didn't play for as many managers. He didn't play that many games for Celtic if you're not a fabulous football player. But it just means so much more to me as a Celtic fan than a guy who wore the hoops. Mm-hmm. And even as a manager, I know we're talking more about players, but when he left and he chucked the boots into the jungle and that as well. And
so Ajax.
And just the centenary season as well, his interviews after the game. And
they've become iconic, particularly the cup final interview.
Aye,
it's an iconic quote.
I remember, as we all done at that time, you would record it and go home and watch it, and you would keep it and you would knock the wee tab out so nobody would be able to tape
See
across
if you could
it.
spot yourself in the crowd.
And you used to just rewind that interview. And that interview was fantastic.
He was close to tears, wasn't he?
Definitely. He understood what it meant. And for me, he should get into any greatest Celtic 11 just because of the man that he was.
And he'd be wearing the number 11 shorts.
Definitely.
That was a centenary thing, eh?
I've wrote him down as number 11.
Number 11. And who else you got in that midfield, Kevin?
Nakamura. He says a couple of weeks ago, Gordon Strachan had a choice to make. Sign Craig Bellamy or bring in a couple of players. Nakamura and Boric came in at that time.
You did.
For Celtic not to have Nakamura in their history, we would be poorer for it. The guy was an utter genius.
Mm-hmm. Still playing.
I know. And
Just
still
like
banging
Boric,
in free
still
kicks.
scoring goals.
His first game against Dundee United at Celtic Park, he was fabulous. You just remember the free kicks. I mean, you were actually confident any time you got a free kick that he was going to score. Under the pressure situations, Old Trafford, Celtic Park, the Celtic Park one, when it leaves his foot, there's a picture and you see Van der Sar in the goal, and you can see Van der Sar's face going, he's done it again. He just knows it's ending up in the back of the net. The goal at Rugby Park to win the league. When we're that far in front, if it doesn't go in, it doesn't go in. We're winning the league the following week at Celtic Park. But the fact that he scores and puts it in the opposite corner than he actually should, and sends the whole place,
celebration,
and sends the whole place absolutely mental. Mm-hmm. And one of the greatest Celtic kits ever is just fabulous. We've been blessed with some great players in our time, and modern times as well. Seeing Nakamura is absolutely fabulous, and it gave you the excuse when you went back to the boozer after the games to play turning Japanese by the Vapors on the jukebox
and dance. Nakamura, McStay, Burns and Petrov, what a midfield. And who's going to complete this lineup up front?
Folk are going to say this just because he's a friend of the podcast, but I've put Brian McClare one of my front two. The reason being, it's easy to say with hindsight at that time, everybody's favourite player was a certain striker that played alongside Brian McClare. I always liked McClare better. McClare's got a better goal scoring record. Numerous players of the years, numerous top goal scorers. He always used to score, and you always used to trust him to score. And he was in that time again, I would have been about 7, 8, 9 when he was in that Celtic team. Brian McClare was my hero in that Celtic team. And the fact that I've got to know him and he's such a bizarre sound guy makes it even better.
Bizarre but sound. You're absolutely right. And he's got great taste in music and a brilliant sense of humour.
Mm-hmm. He just unlike a lot of football players, but he was my hero growing up because of the number of goals that he scored for Celtic, and you could always rely on him. And having got to know him now, he probably quite liked other members of the team getting the limelight, and he just got on with what he was good at, playing football, scoring goals, and probably annoying guys in the dressing room.
We were talking to him about his biggest regrets, and we were kind of thinking about a few things he might have done differently, and he said his biggest regret was getting a perm on the Tuesday before the game at Love Street, because when it started raining his hair went frizzy. And
now since he's pointed that out and you look back at the pictures, you do actually see why he made that. Again, that day at Love Street, that team.
You think of that team in that lime green strip, you think McClare, don't you? You think the goal that Danny McGrain started the move, obviously it wasn't finished by McClare, but he played a part in it as well. But you do think of players like, you've actually named Tommy Burns, Paul McStay, Roy Aitken, and Brian McClare. So
you can tell my age by the team.
Big 80s influence in there.
There is a massive 80s influence in there. But again, we're up against a fantastic Aberdeen side during that period, a fantastic Dundee United side. And even though Rangers were hit or miss, we didn't beat them in the League Cup. McClare scored a fantastic goal in a League Cup final that nobody really remembers because we ended up losing the game. And even going into those games against Rangers at that time, though we had a far superior side, they always seem to get a result against us. But I love Chalky. I loved them at the time, and even now it's still, sometimes I still need to take a wee step back and go, wow.
You've shared the stage with him.
I know they. Aye.
Who would his strike partner be?
It's got to be Henrik. It's going to be very difficult of anybody of our generation not to have Henrik Larsson in any Celtic team when they're mentioning the greatest 11. Probably the last world-class player we'll see in Scottish football. To stay for as long as he did, even though Fergus McCann tried to sell him to Man United, and Celtic at that time gave him the same contract that Man United offered him. So it just shows you the change in money since then. We could never match any contract Man United can give a player now. Scored the opening goal against St Johnstone. It's the first league title in 9 years. Phenomenal second season under Weinglass. Everybody forgets that Weinglass season. But there's games where he scored, in 4 games he scored 4 and 3 hat-tricks. 4 goals against Motherwell on a Sunday night and a 7-1 win. And that season, if there wasn't so much turmoil before that season started, then we dropped off a cliff after we lost the league. We really did. The mind went, we lost the cup final. Rod Wallace scored the goal in the cup final. I often wonder what Weinglass would have been like if we had had a full pre-season. But he was no interested in staying. He says, bizarrely enough, that because of the number of players we had at France 98, that we wouldn't start playing it to October. And the football we played from October to March is some of the best football I've ever watched Celtic playing. And Henrik Larsson was a massive, massive part of that. History again, that night in Lyon. I was there that night in Lyon. Didn't realise it was as bad as what it actually was until the bus drove us home the following day. Could things have been different for Barnes if Larsson would have stayed fit? Having a partnership with him and Viduka, phenomenal. Would have been up there with anything in British football. But then to come back, the Martin O'Neill treble season, 53 goals that season, goal at Tannadice first game, and he just kept on scoring and scoring after that, and he never seemed to stop. Never seemed to stop scoring. Seville, my God. If one player deserved us to win that night, it was him. The way he hung for the first goal, just a phenomenal player. Great in there. I've never seen a player that can actually hang like he did. He was built like a middleweight boxer. He always managed to get on the blind side of defenders. Defenders knew, we need to watch this guy, but couldn't watch him. He had this great run. Where I sit at Celtic Park in 4-1-2, you could see Alan Thompson playing this ball, and Thompson didn't need to look up, and Larsson was on it. It was almost as if Thompson goes, I'm playing this ball, I ken that he's going to be there. He was more than a goal scorer. I mean, there was a couple of times I think he played right-hand side of midfield, dropped back. The last time I've ever regretted a football game was when he scored against Dundee United in his final game at Celtic Park. I think there was 50,000 guys had something in their eye that day, including him.
Aye, including Henrik.
And cup final against Dunfermline, when he starts running for that halfway line, we were 1-0 down at that time. When he starts running for that halfway line, and you're going, this is your last ever game for Celtic. You always knew he was going to score. It was never in doubt.
It was written in the stars.
Aye, definitely. He epitomises a club, as well as you say. There's a fairy tale. There's a Stotton first league title in 9 years, bad leg break, first treble since the early 1970s, first European Cup final since the early 1970s, then a fairy tale double at the end. It was magnificent.
Now, most of the players that you've chosen, Kevin, are from the 1980s and 90s era. So going back to that era, it was an era of the fanzine culture. I was a massive fan of Not Review, Once a Tim. They were probably my two go-to fanzines. What was your memories of the fanzine culture of the 80s and 90s?
Some of your younger listeners will only understand what a fanzine was and how groundbreaking they were. They took their ethos from punk, and you can actually tell when we've got a pile of them in front of us here, and you actually look at the early Not the Views, and Not the View has still got that punk DIY about it. It's still got that. They were funny. They were guys having a laugh, but also, especially the Celtic ones had a part to play, and we've had the long talk with average Joe Miller, about how they highlighted racism amongst the Celtic support, how they preached the left-wing values of what some folks say the Celtic support should have. They also took the fight to the old board, when you've got a lot of people, younger guys, won't actually remember that the press took great pleasure in reporting what was wrong at Celtic at that time, and these guys were an articulate voice done in with the punk ethos, and they liked poking fun at absolutely everybody.
Including themselves.
They never took themselves serious. And I think that's something that the Celtic support, the older Celtic support have got it. But it's something that modern day fans sometimes didn't poke fun at themselves. And that should be the best thing. You should be able to poke fun at yourselves.
I know. The minute anybody does it, you get a bite on social media. But back in those days, I mean, looking at some of these Not the Views, as you say, they're basically just punk fanzines.
The one that you've picked up's got Paul Elliott on the
Paul Elliott, Mike Galloway, Jack Anoski and Le Petit Merde. I think Not the View named them that, didn't they?
They did, yes.
And the series that they ran on the back of the early editions was Friendly Moments with the Old Firm. Using that term, it shows you how old these fanzines are.
The ones as well, the greatest haircuts of our time as well. And the lookalikes, the lookalikes is still one of your, I was fucking through them there, and first thing you look for is the lookalike ones. And one of the first lookalikes that I picked up was Walter Smith storming up the tunnel, and a boy saying that he looked like the Abominable Snowman. He looked like a Yeti.
Some of the merch is brilliant as well when you look at some of the Judas and the Beast as a t-shirt they were selling in Not the View. I used to get this ordered. I got it in mail order and sent to my front door. Looking through some of these then, Kevin, let's get some of your highlights. You picked something that you would like to share with us.
Social media killed us, and at the back of Not the View there was always a wee section, a couple of pages called Celtic Shorts. Now it was like a pen pal section, and with people looking for stuff. So I've picked out 4 that I want to read out and to see if these folk are
None
still
of them were mine, were they?
Well, we'll soon find out. So the first one's for Kevin McNulty, who was in Glasgow at the time.
All right, Kevin,
if he's still
if you're listening.
But this is going to be amazing if somebody does contact us, Unused Celtic phone cards, cigarette football cards, early badges and scarves, and anything but the Pogues and Shane McGowan. If interested, contact. And he's gave his address.
Full address.
And imagine doing that today.
Brilliant.
You would get inundated with stuff. This one's for Gary Gibbons.
This is Celtic issue, Not the View, issue 30.
Number 30. What's it got a date on? It's got Liam Brady on the front of it. So Gary Gibbons is asking, any buses that will be travelling to Europe with the Celts this season, if you have room for a couple of Blackpool-based Celts to join, please contact Gary Gibbons. So if there's any clubs out there that can give Gary a hand, we've got his address.
Give him a shout. You had to be really well organised because this was a monthly. You know, on Twitter, if you needed something, you do it and it happens that moment. This was a monthly fanzine. Still is.
So this is well before Napster and stuff like that, and downloading and Spotify. So who's this guy? Oh, he's only gave his first name. This is John for London, who has available Shane McGowan and the Pogues, live St Patrick's Day, London, the 17th of March 1994, The Men They Couldn't Hang, The Saw Doctors and U2, all great quality live recordings. Please send a self-addressed envelope and he'll give you a copy of these tapes.
Just send you the bootlegs.
Aye.
Brilliant.
And finally, this guy, Stephen Campbell, who stayed in Glasgow at the time. Now, Stephen is a 25-year-old long-haired Celtic fanatic into rock, metal and alternative music, would like to correspond with Irish females with similar tastes. So if there's any Irish females listening to us, please contact, we'll put you in contact with Stephen.
And how did Stephen get on? When was this? Issue number 57, which was September, October 95. What age will he be now? What age was he at the time?
25.
So he's 50
He's
now.
50 now.
I wonder how he got on.
I wonder if anybody responded. If anybody knows Stephen, let us know how he got on with it. But that's innocent.
I know.
There's guys putting in their full addresses, and there's loads of them there. There's guys asking for Northampton and stuff like that. Is there any supporters club that I can travel up with? Is there anybody I can share a car with to watch games? That's pre-internet. Nowadays that's on Twitter and you've got the Celtic bar stuff and all of that. But I remember buying these fanzines and reading that.
I know.
And going, oh, well, let's go to the back and see who's selling stuff, who's like...
I used to put in adverts for my missing issues of Not The View, and then
there's loads of them when you look
people
back,
would just send them to you, Kevin. They wouldn't ask for any money, they'd just send them to you. But that's the Celtic supporters. There's a feature there that you've highlighted with Ronnie Whelan.
And it's called The One That Got Away. So it's Ronnie Whelan talking about he could have signed for Celtic, but he didn't. And he ended up moving to Liverpool.
He played in the same team or in the same league as Christy Dignam, who went on to be the front man of Aslan.
All right.
Ronnie Whelan. But just on that subject, Kevin, the one that got away, there's a few players over the years that you always thought were built for Celtic. They might have been Celtic-minded, a Celtic type of player. Is there anybody over the years that you were a bit disappointed that never made it to Celtic? Not playing for Celtic would be the name of this particular section. Any players that you would have loved to have come to Celtic Park?
Kevin Gallagher always seemed to be destined to come to Celtic Park, obviously with the family connection, and he was a fantastic footballer as well.
You think of the money we threw away in the early 90s, and you could have got, I think Gallagher went to Coventry for 1.75.
He did, yes, aye.
So we were chucking a lot of money. Down at the English leagues for players. Kevin Gallagher would have been a far better signing. Definitely,
and again, he would understood what it was to play for Celtic. Again, at the time, maybe moving to England was a better move for him because of the state of the club. But he was still a Celtic type player. He scored the goal in the 88 Cup final for Dundee United. Fair strike, right enough. But even at that point, you could have signed him in 89. He always seemed a Celtic type player, and when I watched Dundee United, it was always a bit, he could play for us.
I liked him. I liked Billy McKinlay in that team as well. Billy McKinlay, he ended up Blackburn Rovers, and in actual fact, Kevin Gallagher eventually joined Blackburn and played with Sutton, and Chris Sutton speaks really highly of Kevin Gallagher as a strike partner. So, any others?
Pat Nevin. Nevin is a Celtic player.
Played with the boys' club.
He did.
Then he went to Clyde, and I think at that time Billy McNeil was the manager of Clyde.
Definitely, Nevin always seemed destined to play for Celtic at one point. Circumstances, now folk would probably go,
boo, hiss. In fact, have we not got a wee... So, if you heard the name of Pat Nevin, it could be a... It's using the new sound effects there. Do you like that?
Oh, no. Nevin, floppy hair, jersey looking too big.
Another kind of in the mould of the Brian McClare, where he was a bit of a intellectual, wasn't he?
He didn't seem to suit 1980s knee socks, machoism. Even though McClare did have a moustache at one point, Nevin always seemed a bit...
He was a DJ, he wrote for music mags, he did all that kind of thing, so he was quite arty, and I agree as a player. And there would have been a time, even when he went to Tranmere, I still think he had a couple of years in him that we could have had him.
He ended up at Motherwell, He played at Motherwell for a couple of years. Maybe not at that point, but at his peak, he always says, well, he should be a Celtic player. A Glasgow guy. He's obviously from a Celtic background. He was at the boys' club, a bit like Gallagher himself. When you look at some of the guys that we did sign, you're like, wait a minute, they should be odds.
The money you spent on Slater would have got you Nevin. The money you spent on Cascarino would have went some way to getting you Kevin Gallagher.
There's other guys as well. Like Bully McNeil always says, the boy that wanted to sign in '89 was Beardsley. I mean, that's one that definitely got away. You've got Beardsley, you've got guys like Steve Clark as well. If Davy Hay had got Steve Clark, things might have been different. One of the more modern day ones did playing for us was Robbie Keane. The Robbie Keane rumour was years and years old, and when it eventually did happen, you're like, what? This is actually going to happen. Robbie Keane is going to sign for Celtic. I don't think there's many modern players that I'll look at. Maybe it's just because I don't watch as much football as I do now, and truthfully, the markets that we shop in now, you're not going to see guys. You see Scottish guys. Sometimes they'll maybe do a job for us, but then they're completely disparaged on social media. Why are you signing guys for Scotland? Why?
That's right. A lot of the guys we've mentioned made their name in Scottish football.
Johnny Hayes. You looked at Johnny Hayes, and I thought he might do a job for us. And when he signed us, and he still gets abuse now for being a professional, it gives you a 6, 7 out of 10 any time that he comes on. He's not the greatest player. He if he was sitting in this room with us, he would probably admit that he's not the greatest player. But guys like that you need. Guys like that have made up great Celtic teams in the past. Mm-hmm. Guys like that managers go to time and time again. There's other ones for the 80s as well that I look at, and like Graham Sharp.
Could have had Graham Sharp because Billy McNeil signed Murdo MacLeod from Dumbarton, and in that same team was Graham Sharp. But McNeil thought there was no way he could take two players from that one team and for both of them to be a success, which is a bit unusual looking back now, because obviously Sharp went on to some great things and a Celtic fan by all accounts.
Was he? I didn't ken he was a Celtic fan. I just Shoot magazine and The Match and that. Graham Sharp, great Everton side. Kevin Sheedy was in that Everton side as well. Peter Reid, another big Celtic fan, allegedly. Tony Cotty. That was a great Everton side at that time.
Neville Southall in goals.
Aye, well, we've done Southall's testimonial. Mm-hmm.
We were meant to do Graham Sharp's testimonial.
Were we?
That was lined up, and I don't know why it didn't happen. Anybody else before we move on?
David Speedy.
I liked Speedy. Remember he signed for Liverpool?
Aye.
Was Dalglish the manager still at the time?
Yes, he was. I like David Speedy. Again, this is all down to Shoot magazine and the brief highlights that you saw on the telly at that time. And quite weird that all the guys that I've named are Scottish. So obviously I had a paid closer attention to the Scottish players down in England, and obviously for the national team at that point as well. I always liked Speedy, wee nippy, looked like he would cause a fight in an empty house type of guy. And
did he ever play in Scottish football? Don't think so.
Don't think so.
He would have done Celtic a turn without a doubt. Mm-hmm. And the other one that I've mentioned time and time again is Bernie Slavin.
I
always fancied Bernie Slavin as a striker, and he would have scored goals for Celtic. And there was a brilliant story that we actually printed it on the website. I say printed, that's because we're talking about fanzines. Mm-hmm. We published it on the website about Bernie trying to force through a move to Celtic when he was a Middlesbrough player. You
talk about printed versions. Slavin would have been a fantastic player for. Again, there's a lot of them in the Republic Island sides at 88 and 90 that you looked at, you go, oh, they must have Celtic connections. Some of them are lucky to have Irish connections.
Ray Houghton is another one.
Ray Houghton's another one. Why did I know right down?
Castle Malt Boy.
Aye. So there's a lot of them in that the Irish diaspora team that Charlton created that you looked at, you go, I wonder if any of them ended up signing Mick McCarthy, right enough, for them as well. When you're talking about fanzine, there seems to be an upturn in maybe no weekly fanzines, but quarterly fanzines that are done as coffee table magazines now. There seems to be quite a wee fad going
like
on.
Your Nutmeg and
Mondial. There's one done recently. These Footy Times has done a Celtic one,
I've seen that,
which is done, which has got quite a lot of artwork by people that we know, Made in Frankie for Twitter. She's done quite a bit in that. So there seems to be it's moved on rather than the weekly. These ones that are punk DIY, there seems to be a first for print that's quality,
kind of top end quality,
top end quality now, but with Fanzine writing in it. So that's quite an interesting change.
And we're talking about guys who you thought were maybe Celtic fans. We know for a fact that the boys at Primal Scream certainly are Celtic fans. And quite recently, unfortunately, we heard of the death of Andrew Wetherill, who produced the seminal album Screamadelica. Kevin, you write a regular feature for a Celtic State of Mind called Screamadelica, when you look at an album that is pivotal in your life and how that relates to what Celtic were doing when the album was released. Let's talk about Screamadelica and how important that is to you as a music fan.
It's a strange album because it was a series of EPs to start off with. So you knew Loaded, you knew Come Together. Then a couple of years later it's packaged as this album. It's probably the first album that I sort of realised the importance of outside influences on bands. That these bands just weren't the 4 or 5 guys in a room who had all their own ideas and came up with these magical songs. There was outside influences, there was guys and there was production guys who were sitting there going, that doesn't work, try this, try that. So Andrew Wetherill introduced me to the remix. I'm like, what do you mean this is Primal Scream and Andrew Wetherill? What do you mean? And then you start looking into it and you realise the George Martin's influence on the Beatles. Martin Hannett with Joy Division and that. So it was kind of a big eye-opener for me. I didn't understand. I wasn't a big dance music fan. I was an indie kid. I was a Manchester. So then he also introduced you to house music. Mm-hmm. The Primal Scream showed me that you didn't need to be the 4 guys in the room. You could be 4 guys in a room, come up with a bit and give it to somebody else, and this guy absolutely batters it and turns it into something completely different that the band love. It also changed the way that the Primal Scream worked, as we were told that they started, when you look at bits of Screamadelica that they had, instead of giving Wetherill and the Orb fully formed songs, they gave them part of it and went, this is what we're thinking, and they built things on top of it. It's a great album. It's the zeitgeist of that period. It's a bookend. It's the end of Acid House and the start of something completely different, because within 2 years you've got the government cracking down on warehouse. Well, before that you had the government cracking down on warehouse parties. And
we might have to start warehouse parties back up again, illegally.
We might need to. I mean, you've got the Acid House period had ended. So this took the Acid House from the warehouse into folks' living rooms. Mm-hmm. After parties, everybody stuck on, and it kicks off with a fantastic Stonesy moving on up gospel thing, and then just goes into something else. When they done it in the 20th anniversary, they done it at the SEC, was fantastic, great night, brilliant, they done it well. I mean, Slip Inside This House, absolutely fantastic. You've got Denise Johnson, who vocal performance on all that album is out of this world, and it's an album that hasn't dated. And which is extremely difficult for a lot of albums at that time not to date, and it hasn't dated whatsoever. You can still play Loaded and it'll still slay any dance floor in the world.
What I also love about that album is the cover art. It was a painting by Paul Cannell, who was a outstanding artist, penniless artist, committed suicide, believe it or not. And that wee sunburst was part of a larger painting. And it's become an iconic musical symbol, but also a symbol of that era as well. What I found out much later on was the red element of that cover was actually blue on the say-so of Alan McGee, and Gillespie told him to change it. So good on Bobby.
It's a meeting of minds, like-minded people who so happen to, whether it's fate, luck, bump into each other. And when you look at Andrew Wetherill, you can see why he liked the Primal Scream. He had that sort of same dirty, greasy, rocky look, and for him to be playing the nightclubs, the Shoom nightclub that he was actually playing, is like quite weird when you actually see what he looked like. He just didn't give a monkeys. He could have been one of the first superstar DJs. Never went down that route. It was actually quite weird. After he died, the amount of records that I've actually got that he's been involved in, I didn't realise, especially the Fuck Buttons records and the Blank Mass records as well. And now that's been pointed out to me, I can hear his sonic footprint on these records. He's sobbing the tributes from everybody of a certain age. He had a massive effect on a lot of people's lives. Just seemingly being a very, very interesting, off-the-wall, talented guy.
Now, you're talking about influences and, how Andrew Weatherall influenced Primal Scream. Primal Scream influenced Andrew Weatherall. He was a fanzine writer with Boyzone Fanzine, was that right?
Boyzone, yes.
And he gave the Scream great write-ups regularly. One of the only persons to do so, I think Andrew has said, and obviously there was a meeting of minds, and Primal Scream gave him the freedom to do what he wanted to do on that record, and it was spectacular and still is a go-to record for me, and I know for yourself. Some people love it so much they even get it tattooed on their bicep. In terms of influences, Kevin, what is your influences in your own creative work with your poetry?
Very, very strange. I was talking to my cousin's husband the other night there, and he was saying to me, where does it come from? Where do you get it from? And I'm like, I don't really know, because I'm not that well read. I can't say I've read any of the classics or anything like that. I was brought up reading music press, so there is a type of music press style, heavily influenced probably by lyricists rather than poets, truthfully. Irvine Welsh is anybody my age. I've said that quite a few times on this podcast, but anybody my age has got to have been influenced by Irvine Welsh if they're in any sort of creative form, especially writing. Anybody was a storyteller, and I didn't quite get this until later on when I started thinking about it. The reason that I started writing poetry from long form articles when I thought I could have been a journalist, and I realised very, very quickly that I couldn't be, was Mick Head, strangely enough. Mm-hmm. I read an interview with Mick Head, and he says that he was doing a project when he was going to tell a story in 99 words. And I was like, I'm going to give that a go. And I read the book by Daniel Gray, Saturday 3 p.m, which is done in a sort of prose poetry. Mm-hmm. That's how it was sold to me. And I went, I'm going to give that a go. I read it, and the Mick Head thing, 90 words, so I restricted myself the number of words that I wanted to do. I also had to make sure it told a story. I had to make sure that, a bit like Mike Skinner, heavy influence on what I do, the way that he describes things, mm-hmm. the minuscule details. And there's a lot of poetry that I have read which doesn't do anything to you. You read it, you go, nah, it doesn't have that sort of effect. So I had to write stories that had a beginning, middle and end, which was going to resonate with people, which people were going to actually feel. And that's how I done it. That's how I started it. And I think the perfect example is the Tommy Burns one, which has now got a life of its own. And that took me ages to write. But I had the lines in it. I had your flamed hair was a fuse, your flamed hair was a lion's mane. And everything just seemed to get everything built round about those. And that's what happens quite a lot with what I do, is either a phrase, a sentence, something sticks, and I build round about it. And what I seem to do as well is there seems to be, I handwrite it, then I edit it as I put it on as I type it, and the handwriting is subconscious. Then when I see things down, like typed in black and white, I seem to visualise it more. Whatever I need to visualise, and I can do it better. But there is certain poems where I've started off saying one thing and it's ended up completely different. But it always starts off with a couple of lines, and it doesn't matter how long those couple of lines sit with me, sit in a notebook. They usually end up in the finished article. And it's different now because I've performed a couple of times. I've changed a couple of the poems that I've actually written, so there's more emphasis on the performance. So that's kind of changed my writing a bit as well. And obviously at the moment I'm doing something that's a bit more long form, which is a bit of a challenge. It's a bit different, but it's good. I'm really, really enjoying the challenge of doing that. But I really love the fact that I've took the poetry out there to Celtic fans, football fans, and the reaction's been utterly fantastic. It's not nothing better than having somebody coming up to you and go, I remember that, and that reminded me of this, and I didn't think that would work. And one of the recent nights that we had at Greenock at the Tommy Burns supper, a higher English teacher came up to me, and I was like, oh no, they praised it. They says, poetry is anything as long as it makes you feel something. And I went, oh well, I take that. But I love getting guys who wouldn't think it's going to work, seeing it working and going, oh, that's, and if that, and having people come up to me and go, oh, you go anywhere where I can read your stuff, and that's good as well. That is really good, because I didn't care if it was going to work. I didn't know what was going to happen with it. And obviously the first two poems I wrote were 1985 and Hail Caesar, and they were both published in the Mind of Time anthology about the Football Memories project. Sometimes you just think that's going to be a wee bit of luck, but it's kind of, I've had a fair bit of luck since then, so I must be doing something right.
And it will continue. It will continue. Now, just last week, a Celtic State of Mind attended the Stevie Chalmers auction. It was a much sought-after display of memorabilia, match-worn jerseys, medals, pennants, boots. And we were lucky enough to acquire some of the items. We will be making a video this week and putting it out for everyone to enjoy. And the items that we won were the match-worn Adidas football boots, worn in the 60s by Stevie. We also got a fantastic Real Madrid pennant and a Feyenoord pennant that belonged to Stevie. On the subject of Feyenoord, who are celebrating their 50th anniversary of the European Cup final win against Celtic, we acquired a very unusual Feyenoord match-worn jersey that had been worn before an exhibition game between the Celtic Old Boys and the Feyenoord Old Boys. We also got the Coca-Cola match-worn jersey. So this was the away team. It's a strange kind of tone of green with a big K on the left breast and two white stripes on the right. What also came with that was the two programmes, home and away. So we've got the away programme as well. We also got number 7 shorts. You were talking about Celtic shorts in the Not The View. We've got a pair of Celtic shorts. There's a pocket, Kevin. What that could be for, 20 fags, I don't know. There's a pocket in the shorts. We also got a set of hoops from the 1970s with a floppy 1970s collar, and we obtained a second pair of boots that were worn to a point where the Adidas stripes are hanging off. And finally, very interestingly, we got the green away jersey and shorts with a number 3 on the back, which I'm going to be doing some research myself to try and date them and hopefully identify the game that the jersey was worn in. So we've got a whole array of Celtic memorabilia. So on the subject of jerseys and the new kit deal that we've just done with Adidas, what is your all-time favourite Celtic jersey, home and away?
I've got a few, and it changes every so often. My favourite one is the 1988, the centenary one. That is a fantastic kit. They've done that really, really well. It holds a special place for me because it was the first kit I ever got in August, and I didn't need to wait to Christmas to actually get
the wee kind of furry velvety badge.
The collar was nice, and it was this. At that time, I think that was a peak period for kits. I think by the time that you get into the early 90s, they go a bit garish and they go a bit different shades, and the louder the better. The away kit that year, well, the away kit for a couple of years was the yellow one with the green, nice and simple. They just stir memories, probably more on how the kit actually looked. Another one, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm spending a lot of time looking at this, is the Martin O'Neill treble one. It has took on a whole new different vision for me now. Again, at the time, a lot of folk didn't like it because it was the panels and that, but I think when you see it now, you go, that was a cracking kit, that.
Heavy kit. See, when you see even the replica ones were really heavy back then.
Mm-hmm. When I look back on that now, when I see it now, I go, that's a cracking kit, that was a decent kit. Away kit, mentioned the Erling Nakamura's Rugby Park, fabulous away kit, loved that away kit. But it's amazing how jerseys sometimes change in your mind when you look back. There's a couple of them I'm holding up a Once a Tim here, and it's got Tom Boyd on the front of it we'll maybe take a picture of this. It's Tom Boyd on the front of it with some nice looking lady.
Is it Joe Guest? It looks like Joe Guest.
I don't know. The kit that they're modelling anyway, she's saying, me thinks it's great, like I've always supported QPR. So it's a kit that we wore at Hampden with the free hoops. Again, looking back, I didn't like it at the time, but looking back on that now, I'm going, that's a great retro top. There's something about that top now, and we were terrible at that time, right enough, but it wasn't a very good season at Hampden.
What player does that jersey remind you of? Pat McGinley for me.
I was going to say the exact same. Pat McGinley.
Mm-hmm.
Aye.
Mm-hmm. Sign of the times. But that was very much at that era. It was Umbro v Adidas. The Celtic had the big Umbros on the shading, and Adidas had the three stripes on the sleeves for the Adidas kit. So you're going for the centenary home strip with a commemorative badge, and the away kit being the black and green. The
black and green one,
vertical stripes.
Again, when you asked me about this, I was having a think, and a lot of my favourite kits still now come from that period for about 85 to 90. You've got the Republic of Ireland kits that they had in Euro Championship 88, and the one in the Italian 90s, a cracking, plain, simple top. Again, England, 1990, the Umbro one.
White, and they had the red one as well, didn't they?
I like the light blue one. Mm-hmm. That's New Order wearing the World in Motion video. I think you maybe shouldn't like England kits, but I think that was a cracking kit.
But then that team was managed by Bobby Robson, so you did have there was a reason to like it.
Definitely, definitely. The Scotland kit in '86 as well, apart from the shorts, which had the band round the shorts, but that top's quite nice as well. And then you get to 1990, you get Germany with the zigzag on the front. Just seemed to be at that time.
Netherlands, the orange one with that shading in the European Championships, 88.
You seem to get to that point then when early 90s, they just seem to go horribly wrong. Mm-hmm. The more outlandish, the better.
But that was the era of the shell suit, Kevin, so it was all very loud colours and designs. But we've got Adidas kits to look forward to, and hopefully we will see the designs very soon. I don't know when we can wear them, but hopefully we'll see them very soon. All that's left for me to say from our new base in Glasgow is, Kevin, thank you for attending and speaking once again on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thank you very much. Hail, hail.